Anime fans, let's talk about one of the most disrespectful tropes in Isekai. The main character gets reincarnated with the absolute worst skill imaginable, and somehow turns it into god-tier power. Today we're counting down 6 anime where trash abilities become terrifyingly overpowered. Number 6. Failure Frame. I became the strongest and annihilated everything with low-level spells. You ever watch an anime where the hero gets so disrespected in the first episode that you instantly know the revenge arc is about to be nuclear? Yeah, buckle up. This series throws Tuka Mimori into another world with his classmates, and while everyone else gets flashy hero-tier abilities, he's stuck with what the goddess literally calls trash status effect magic. Poison, paralysis, sleep. That's it. Sounds weak, right? Here's the twist. Those so-called low-level spells are horrifyingly effective when someone smart is using them. Instead of flashy sword fights, this anime leans into cold, calculated combat. Tuka doesn't overpower enemies with brute force. He shuts their bodies down like a system crash. One moment a monster is roaring, the next moment it's frozen in place while poison slowly deletes its health bar. The atmosphere is darker than most isekai. The lighting is moody, the pacing feels tense, and the soundtrack loves those low rumbling strings that scream something bad is about to happen. Number 5. My Isekai Life. I gained a second character class and became the strongest sage in the world. Okay, let me ask you something. What if your weak ability was literally taming slimes? Not dragons, not demons, slimes. At first glance, this anime feels like your typical chill isekai. Yuji Sano gets transported to another world and ends up with a monster tamer class that most people treat like a low-tier support job. But here's where it gets wild. Yuji's slimes basically become walking magical Wi-Fi routers. They gather knowledge, collect spellbooks, analyze enemies, and suddenly this quiet salaryman is unlocking magic like he's speedrunning an RPG skill tree. And visually, the show has this fun contrast. The slimes are adorable little blobs bouncing around like mascots. Meanwhile, Yuji is casually dropping spells that flatten entire monster hordes. The action scenes aren't just flashy either. The sound design makes every spell feel heavy, like magical artillery. When Yuji finally cuts loose, the battlefield turns into a glowing storm of runes and explosions. But the real vibe here is relaxed dominance. Yuji isn't screaming or showing off. He's just calmly walking through problems while his slime army collects information like tiny magical researchers. Number 4. The Great Cleric. You think being a healer sounds boring? Yeah, that's exactly what everyone in this world thinks too. This anime follows Luciel, a guy who gets reincarnated and chooses the healer class, which in most RPG logic means standing in the backline casting support spells while the real fighters get the spotlight. But Luciel looks at that stereotype and basically says, nah, we're doing this differently. Instead of playing passive support, he trains like an absolute maniac. Sword drills, combat practice, dungeon crawling. This dude treats healing magic like combat utility rather than babysitting. And the tone of the show is surprisingly grounded. The guild halls feel lived in. The dungeon lighting has this dusty, torchlit realism, and Luciel's training sequences feel like watching someone grind levels the hard way. There's also this hilarious running joke involving a drink called Substance X, which looks like expired swamp water, but somehow boosts Luciel's abilities. Every time he drinks it, you can practically hear the audience gag through the screen. But the real charm is watching someone turn a support role into a survival strategy. Luciel becomes the kind of adventurer who never dies because he literally refuses to stay injured. If you enjoy methodical progression, training arcs, and slow burn power growth, this anime scratches that leveling up itch perfectly. Number 3. Arifureta, From Commonplace to World's Strongest. Alright, I'm going to be honest with you. This anime starts with one of the nastiest betrayals in modern isekai. Hajime gets summoned with his class to another world, and while everyone else receives flashy combat abilities, he's stuck with something painfully unimpressive. Transmutation, basically reshaping materials. Then he gets betrayed, dropped into the abyss of a dungeon, and left for dead. And this is where the show flips the table. Trapped in the darkest level of the labyrinth, Hajime survives through sheer desperation. The atmosphere becomes claustrophobic and brutal, dim cavern lighting, echoing monster roars, and this constant feeling that death is one wrong step away. His weak skill becomes the foundation for crafting ridiculous weapons. Guns, explosives, magical gear. Suddenly the guy who was mocked for having a useless ability is walking around like a one-man military operation. Visually, the fights are chaotic in the best way. Bullets, magic circles, monster limbs flying everywhere. And Hajime himself transforms from awkward classmate into a cold, half-confident anti-hero with pure aura farming energy. If you enjoy dark survival arcs that evolve into explosive power fantasy, this show absolutely delivers. Number 2, so I'm a spider, so what? Let me ask you something. What if you got reincarnated in a fantasy world as a spider the size of a basketball? Yeah, not a hero, not a knight, a dungeon spider. This anime drops Kumoko into one of the most hostile environments imaginable, a monster-infested labyrinth where everything wants to eat her. Her starting abilities? Basically the weakest monster stats in the ecosystem. But the genius of this show is watching her grind like a gamer on caffeine. Every fight is a survival puzzle. She's setting traps with webs, evolving new skills mid-battle, stacking poison effects, and constantly narrating her own panic in this hilarious internal monologue. The animation gets wild too. Battles feel chaotic and fast, with spiderwebs snapping across the screen and enemies crashing through cavern walls. But what really sells the show is Kumoko's personality. She's funny, sarcastic, and completely losing her mind while trying to stay alive. One moment she's screaming internally about dying, the next moment she's pulling off some 200 IQ strategy that wipes out a monster 10 times her size. If you want an isekai that feels like watching someone speedrun survival mode, this is an absolute blast. Number 1. Reincarnated as a sword. Okay, real talk. How do you make a protagonist weaker than a level 1 adventurer? Easy. You turn him into a sword. That's the premise here. The main character dies, reincarnates in another world, and wakes up as a sentient weapon stuck in the ground. No arms, no legs, just sword. But here's the twist that makes this anime so good. The real hero becomes Fran, a young beast girl who picks up the sword and forms a partnership with it. And the dynamic between them is amazing. The sword acts like a supportive mentor, while Fran grows from a scared slave into a battle-hardened warrior with terrifying combat instincts. The action scenes are surprisingly crisp too. When Fran fights, the sword channels magic, unleashing blazing elemental attacks and slicing through monsters like glowing lightning. The music kicks in, enemies swarm, and suddenly this wholesome duo is wiping out threats that entire adventurer parties struggle with. If you want a show that mixes heartwarming character growth with explosive battles, this one is pure anime comfort food. Alright, anime fans, which one of these trash skill legends is your favorite? Did I miss a sleeper hit that deserves this list? Drop your picks below, start a war in the comments, and let's argue like true weebs.